The Relation of Dress to Art by Oscar Wilde. How can you possibly paint these ugly three-cornered hats? Asked a reckless art critic once of Sir Joshua Reynolds. I see light and shade in them, answered the artist. Le grand coloriste, says Baudelaire, in a charming article on the artistic value of frock coats. Le grand coloriste vont faire de la couleur avec un habit noir, une cravate blanche et un fond gris. Art seeks and finds the beautiful in all times, as did her high priest Rembrandt, when he saw the picturesque grandeur of the Jews' quarter of Amsterdam, and lamented not that its inhabitants were not Greeks, were the fine and simple words used by Mr. Whistler in one of the most valuable passages of his lecture. The most valuable, that is, to the painter, for there is nothing of which the ordinary English painter needs more to be reminded than that the true artist does not wait for life to be made picturesque for him, but sees life under picturesque conditions always, under conditions, that is to say, which are at once new and delightful. But between the attitude of the painter towards the public and the attitude of a people towards art, there is a wide difference. That, under certain conditions of light and shade, what is ugly in fact may, in its effect, become beautiful is true, and this, indeed, is the real modernité of art. But these conditions are exactly what we cannot always be sure of, as we stroll down Piccadilly in the glaring vulgarity of the noonday, or lounge in the park with a foolish sunset as a background. Were we able to carry our chiaroscuro about with us, as we do our umbrellas, all would be well, but, this being impossible, I hardly think that pretty and delightful people will continue to wear a style of dress as ugly as it is useless, and as meaningless as it is monstrous, even on the chance of such a master as Mr. Whistler spiritualizing them into a symphony, or refining them into a mist. For the arts are made for life, and not life for the arts. Nor do I feel quite sure that Mr. Whistler has been himself always true to the dogma he seems to lay down, that a painter should paint only the dress of his age and of his actual surroundings. Far be it from me to burden a butterfly with the heavy responsibility of its past. I have always been of opinion that consistency is the last refuge of the unimaginative. But have we not all seen, and most of us admired, a picture from his hand of exquisite English girls strolling by an opal sea in the fantastic dresses of Japan? Has not Tite Street been thrilled with the tidings that the models of Chelsea were posing to the master in peplums for pastels? Whatever comes from Mr. Whistler's brush is far too perfect in loveliness to stand or fall by any intellectual dogmas on art, even his own. For beauty is justified by all her children, and cares nothing for explanations. But it is impossible to look through any collection of modern pictures in London, from Burlington House to the Grosvenor Gallery, without feeling that the professional model is ruining painting, and reducing it to a condition of mere pose and pastiche. Are we not all weary of him, that venerable impostor, fresh from the steps of the Piazza di Spagna, who, in the leisure moments that he can spare from his customary organ, makes the round of the studios, and is waited for in Holland Park? Do we not all recognize him when, with the gay insouciance of his nation, he reappears on the walls of our summer exhibitions as everything that he is not, and is nothing that he is, glaring at us here as a patriarch of Canaan, here beaming as a brigand from the Abruzzi? Popular is he, this poor peripatetic professor of posing, with those whose joy it is to paint the posthumous portrait of the last philanthropist who, in his lifetime, had neglected to be photographed. Yet he is the sign of the decadence, the symbol of decay. For all costumes are caricatures. The basis of art is not the fancy ball. Where there is loveliness of dress, there is no dressing up. And so, were our national attire delightful in color and in construction simple and sincere, were dress the expression of the loveliness that it shields and of the swiftness and motion that it does not impede, did its lines break from the shoulder instead of bulging from the waist, did the inverted wine glass cease to be the ideal of form, were these things brought about, as brought about they will be, then would painting be no longer an artificial reaction against the ugliness of life, but become, as it should be, the natural expression of life's beauty. Nor would painting merely, but all the other arts also, be the gainers by a change such as that which I propose, the gainers, I mean, through the increased atmosphere of beauty by which the artists would be surrounded, and in which they would grow up. For art is not to be taught in academies. It is what one looks at, not what one listens to, that makes the artist. The real schools should be the streets. There is not, for instance, a single delicate line or delightful proportion in the dress of the Greeks, which is not echoed exquisitely in their architecture. A nation arrayed in stovepipe hats and dress improvers might have built the Pantechnicon, possibly, but the Parthenon never. And finally, there is this to be said. Art, it is true, can never have any other aim but her own perfection, and it may be that the artist, desiring merely to contemplate and to create, is wise in not busying himself about change in others. Yet wisdom is not always the best. There are times when she sinks to the level of common sense, and the passionate folly of those, and there are many, who desire that beauty shall be confined no longer to the bric-a-brac of the collector and the dust of the museum, but shall be, as it should be, the natural and national inheritance of all. From this noble unwisdom, I say, who knows what new loveliness shall be given to life, and, under these more exquisite conditions, what perfect art is born. Le milieu se renouvelant, l'art se renouvelle. Speaking, however, from his own passionless pedestal, Mr. Whistler, in pointing out that the power of the painter is to be found in his power of vision, not in his cleverness of hand, has expressed a truth which needed expression, and which, coming from the Lord of form and color, cannot fail to have its influence. His lecture, the Apocrypha though it be for the people, yet remains from this time as the Bible for the painter, the masterpiece of masterpieces, the song of songs. It is true that he has pronounced the panegyric of the Philistine, but I can fancy Ariel praising Caliban for a jest, and in that he has read the Commination Service over the critics, let all men thank him, the critics themselves indeed most of all, for he has now relieved them from the necessity of a tedious existence. Considered again, merely as an orator, Mr. Whistler seems to me to stand almost alone. Indeed, among all our public speakers, I know but few who can combine, so felicitously as he does, the mirth and malice of Puck with the style of the major prophets.